Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit homegain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to homegain.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Real Estate 360 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Sloper, joined by my guest, Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Quick reminder, Real Estate 360 is designed to build the Washington, D.C.'s housing and credit markets one house at a time. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to me is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. So, Louis, a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing student loans and the large amount of delinquencies that are taking place with student loans. I believe it was something like 30-some%. And there was another article last week that showed that student loans have soared up 275% over the past decade. Student loan debt hit $904 billion in the first quarter of 2012, which is up from $241 billion a decade ago. And that's according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. That's up 275% since the same period in 2003. It remains the only form of consumer debt to substantially increase since the peak of household debt in the late 2008. You and I talked about this. I mean, I feel like this is going to be a continuing trend. Would you not agree?
Well, because the government is encouraging it.
Yes, absolutely.
And when debt and government are involved, prices go higher, and people incur more debt.
Yeah, and as an economy, as far as the productivity of our economy, I mean, the kids that are just going to go they go for 4 years of college, and then all of a sudden they realize that the job market's not what it once was. They end up going for another 2 years or another 4 years, just delaying the inevitable that they're going to come out on the other side and still have to go and find a job, and the economy's probably not going to be where they think it's going to be.
It's classic debt Ponzi scheme where you have to keep getting more education and paying more for it and borrowing more for it to get less.
Yeah. I mean, it's I want to say that they have the long-term delinquency rate now stands at 8.69% on those student loans. And that's probably an understatement because there's such a large majority of student loans that are currently in deferment or grace periods. So it wouldn't surprise me if that number was probably more towards 15 or 20%.
Sure, and if you think about a student loan, Ryan, there's no collateral behind it.
No.
Other than the ability of the former college student to pay back the loan because of the skills he might have learned in college that he's now applying at his job. But if he doesn't have a job, then there's no collateral behind that loan.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very troublesome thing for me because I'm just okay, inevitably people are just going to rack up more debt, which in the end, if they don't have a job, how can they pay it back? They can't. So at the end of the day, who's going to be stuck paying the bill is the taxpayers. I mean,
eventually, Ryan, what's going to happen is the same thing that colleges, they're going to have to close because they won't be able to continue to raise prices and not raise standards if people going don't derive any financial benefit from going. Right now, it's just cultural to send your kids to college. But if you look at the statistics recently, there really isn't much of a difference in earning power for college grads or high school grads. And I say, what's the difference between a high school grad and a college grad? The answer is about $150,000 in debt.
that is so true. And we actually spoke, I believe it was a couple weeks ago, that it's the government that keeps preaching to everybody that, hey, you have to go to college in order to, get some sort of high-paying job, and that's just not the case. If the government was actually in turn saying, I think it's a good idea for you guys to be creative and start up your own businesses and things like that, we would have a much more productive society. I mean,
yeah, but you don't learn those skills in college.
No.
You learn how to take out a loan and then live on campus for 4 years.
And then when you come out and you actually do get a job, if it's the low-paying job because you can't find the high-paying job that the government promised you, you have to learn the skills once you get hired. They teach you and train you. I mean, so... And
often you believe that job is beneath you because what they're teaching and training you isn't Plato and it isn't, the French revolution causes the French Revolution.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the problems that we have now are people are getting paid more in unemployment monies than they would if they went and, worked a job at McDonald's or something like that.
Oh, sure. I mean, they don't have to commute. You don't have commuting costs. You don't have to wash your clothes as often. I mean, it's better to economically, forget that you don't have any job skills, but it's better to get unemployment than it is to take many jobs.
Yeah. And so we have, people continuously taking that unemployment money instead of working multiple part-time jobs, which would allow them to, to not have their skills erode over a period of time from sitting around their house.
And also, you don't get any networking skills. At least when you're in the job force, you're meeting other people who may also be looking for jobs or may have jobs or may know people who have jobs. It's really very unproductive to be on unemployment and not really get your skills. They just erode when you're home collecting an unemployment check. And most people would rather work.
Yep.
But when it costs you money, it costs more money to take a low-paying job than it does to collect unemployment. Most people also aren't stupid.
No, not at all. An interesting case, I was working with a woman, a dentist, who had been in school for I don't even know how many years, finally out working at a practice, and the medical, student, or not just medical, but all the student loans that she had accrued over that period of time were astronomical. I mean, probably a monthly payment of somewhere around $1,200 to $1,400 a month. I mean, that's a mortgage in itself.
Sure, without an asset.
Yeah, without an asset. So she's coming to me, and we're trying to get creative to figure out, what type of financing we can get her. And I'm like, well, there's not much we can do because you already have a mortgage on your credit report, and you just started working.
Right.
This is a very frustrating thing for a lot of professionals that are like doctors and dentists coming out, and they're like, well, I'm a doctor. I should be able to get a loan. Well, you probably could if you didn't have a $1,500 to $2,000, student loan payment that you have to make now.
Ryan, what you're highlighting is that even what you would consider upper class or upper middle class people, professionals, are having a hard time making ends meet. And if you look back just 50 years ago, that there were carpenters and bricklayers who were single wage earners. Their wives didn't work. They had 4 or 5 kids, and they didn't have as much trouble as you're mentioning professionals are having making ends meet.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's pretty telling that, which are supposed to be the top tier professionals that are supposed to make the majority of the money are now having, just as many problems as everybody else is. So it's not all peaches and cream out there like, some would suggest. And I think that even the people at the top of the food chain are struggling a little bit as well.
Right. The way people look at this is skewed. They're conditioned to think that a college education is your ticket to riches when the facts indicate otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly is a ticket to having a lot of debt. And I know that in a lot of the professions, if you don't do well in your professional school, meaning if you don't finish at the top of your class as a doctor or as a lawyer or as an accountant, your job prospects aren't really that good. But you've racked up a lot of debt to say that you are now a member of the bar or a member of the whatever professional accreditation you may get.
Yeah. It was since you didn't graduate in the top 5, you're not going to work for this firm.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately...
Those firms are now having trouble. If you look at law firms now, law firms are starting to implode because they charge enormous amounts of money in billing fees, and clients are starting to push back on that.
Yeah.
Which means that the job prospects for newer... one of the things that law firms do is they use freshly minted law graduates to do a lot of the work, and really they're not at that stage really able to do the work, and then the partner has to check it. So there's a lot of payments being made by clients to lawyers for giving them on-the-job training.
Yep. It's interesting too, Louis, is that, so I have some great satisfaction in dealing with some of these clients that, may not have a college education, but are working, 2 and 3 jobs, and they have been for an extended period of time now, but they don't have any debt. They don't have any debt. They're working their butts off, and they're able to take advantage of getting a home, taking out a mortgage right now.
But Ryan, if you spent 12 years in the public education system, you should have learned a significant amount of math, science, literature, history. You should have, but you haven't, and then you have to go to college and take out debt to get remedial reading and remedial writing skills. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No. Not at all. And not to mention, we're in the age of technology where, I mean, you could probably learn, if you wanted to, Lewis, you could probably learn to speak Spanish in a month or two. I mean,
oh, sure. With the online education, in fact, you can actually take that is the wave of the future. You could take your online courses. I think that, college education, when you go to university, most of them will go out of business and they'll go the way of the newspapers. People will consume their education just like they do their news online. They'll learn online. And there'll be people who are interested in higher education. Or you'll learn your skills online. But just to go through 4 years of college under a curriculum that isn't designed to help you get a job but is supposedly to educate you, you can educate yourself otherwise. It really is a luxury to be able to go to college for 4 years and to read all the classics and to have the teacher discuss them with you when most of the kids aren't interested anyway.
And go to a few parties, which is
more than a few parties.
Right. Well, I think you and I just set up a new government program that we can install in the local high schools, because that's where this needs to be pushed out to, really. Because until it gets embedded in the minds of people that are just getting into high school, that there are other options out there and that they can actually start, heading towards those options right away. I mean, it would be a tremendous benefit to young people out there to know that, hey, it's okay if I don't go to college, because guess what? I can still I have the access of the internet now where I can learn to do what I want to do and do it.
What's really going to change it is when the attitudes of employers are not skewed towards picking the college graduate over the non-college graduate. And that'll probably happen as a matter of course, as many smart kids get priced out of the college market, or they're smart but they don't want to take on the loan and they want to try their skills directly out of high school in the job market. And as employers start to give these kids a chance, they'll realize, most likely, that they're just as qualified and perhaps even more qualified than somebody who spent 4 years in college.
Yep, agreed. Well, we're coming up on the end of the show here, Lewis. I want to appreciate you for coming on. Guys, if you are looking to start your home search, the best place to do that is homegain.com. You can find a realtor on there, compare numerous realtors against themselves, and choose which one you'd like to work with. Check that out at homegain.com. We'll be back again next week from 2 to 3 p.m. right here on 1580 a.m. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to me is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great week.